Hi everyone,
Okay.
welcome and great to see you back on our second session of Joining Tables with SQL workshop. For those who cannot join the session before, you can watch the recorded version on Paytable. We have our speaker, Helena Bengtson here. She is now developing data journalism at Gotham Media after 27 years as a data journalism editor at Sveriges Television, a Sweden national television broadcaster. Okay, Helena, we are ready to go. Room is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. As you were told, my name is Helena. I work at a publishing group for local papers in the south of Sweden, and as the data editor there for all the reporters on all our 13 papers that we have in this group. And this is the second session of SQL. Could I please ask people who wasn't in the first session to just tell me that in the chat so that I know if there's anybody here who didn't follow in the first session. First session was about SQL and how to use the different commands, and now we're going to focus mostly on joining, but I'm going to do a short recap on what we did yesterday. Oh, that's very good of Peter. He watched the full session this morning. Good for you. Vladimir, do you have the program downloaded? I hope you have. And that is for anybody else who might be too shy to answer my question. Yes, you downloaded it. That's great. Thank you. And I would very much love you to use the chat. I know you're not allowed to speak to me. I find that a little bit sad because I love teaching and I love interacting with students. But please use the chat to ask questions, and I'll try to keep an eye on that and answer the questions as they come along. And what we did yesterday, I'm just going to recap a little bit, was that we looked at SQL, which is the standard query language. Oh, that's great. Moreno, do you have the program downloaded as well? I hope you do. Oh, good. That's great. SQL standard query language is a language that is used for relational databases. And there are, and I think I didn't cover that yesterday, there are several different programs that sort of uses the same language. There is SQLite that we are using in DB browser, for instance. And but there's also, for instance, Postgres SQL that a lot of people are using. There's MySQL, which is a Scandinavian package that a lot of people are using, and also Microsoft has a SQL called SQL Server. And all of these are the commands that you're learning from me are similar to all these programs. There are slightly differences, and what I usually do, as we talked about in the session yesterday, is that I use Google. How do I do a select statement in MySQL? And Google there's a lot of resources there that can help you adjust your language a little bit. But if I can recap a little bit, we did sort of the 5 elements of SQL. We covered them yesterday, which is sort of this cadence, which is sort of select something, select your columns or your variables or your fields. And you can either sort of select them straight ahead, or you can do a formula, pretty much like an Excel formula. This is where we're counting the candidates in this case. And after select, always from comes. So select and from every statement in SQL where you analyze your data, where you pick out parts of your data. That is select from, and that's the table that you're using. And after that, there's 3 numbers of optional things. You could do a condition, which you do with where. So in this case, we were just picking out the winners. We were, look at me, I haven't been consistent here. Sorry about that. We can sort them by using order by, and we can also group them. And we just started to getting into grouping when we finished off yesterday. So grouping is a way to do pivot tables in SQL. And with pivot tables, I mean that it's a way to do sum or count your material according to a column or a variable. So for instance, by doing this command here, yeah, oh, so thank you, Anastasia. I'm so sorry. I get carried away and I didn't share my screen. I'm very happy that you told me. Thank you. And I'm sorry about that. So let's go over this once again. Select, from, where, group by, order by. That is sort of I would say that's the 5 words that you really need to know, to be fair. And then there are a couple of other little things, like if you want to order something descending, you put DESC in the back of what you want to order by. If you want to count or sum or do averages, for instance, you can do a formula up here. The most important thing to remember when you're grouping something, and we're going to look into that a little bit more, is that everything that stands up here in the select statement as itself, if I may express it that way. So we also have candidate here, but we're manipulating candidate. We're counting the candidates. They don't count. So party stands by itself in the select statement. That means that party needs to be in the group by statement. So whatever you have up here by itself must also be here. And grouping is, as I said, you could make that, you can do the comparison is if you have a deck of cards and you want to check if all the cards are there, which we do every Christmas at my house, because there's only one time a year where we play cards, and that's at Christmas. So you take out the old deck of cards and you sort of, there are all the hearts, there are all the spades, there are all the clubs, and so on. You count them up and you see that you have 13 of each. That's what group by does. So for all of you, if you wanna start your program, and that's DB browser, I have it on the desktop, and we can open it here. And if you have the database from yesterday, you can just go to open database and then go to your, I put mine on the desktop if I remember correctly, and I clicked open here. But if you're, and I know there's a couple of people who have joined afterwards, so I'm just going to close that and show you how to create a new database. So and this is the thing that we talked about. This is one of the things that we talked about with the SQL tools. No matter what SQL tool you use, no matter what database you use, you need to first, that's different from Excel, where you can just sort of go in and type right away. You don't have to save, you don't have to everything, you just get the spreadsheet. Here we have to get, and I always think about it as a bucket or a vessel. This is the bucket where we put all our tables in, because in a database, you can have more than one tables, and we're going to join them. We're going to talk about joining them. So for the people who are new, I hope you could, if you start your programs, you can then click on new database. And I'm going to name this GIJC2, because this is the second day. I already have the G. But for the people who already have this database, you can just sort of upload it again if you want to. You can open it up again. So I'm going to name this database GIJC. In this case, for the new people, we're just going to click, we're just going to cancel this screen. And for the new people, I would also like you to go to Pathable and go to Files at Pathable. Let's see where are Pathable. Here on Pathable, you can see that under Files, I would like you to download the second file there, which is called UK Election 2015. And once you've downloaded that and remember where you put it, you can then go back to your program, and we're going to upload this table. And the good thing about using DB Browser is that when you upload a file there, DB Browser creates the data structure for that. And we talked a little bit about that, that there are different kinds of data types in databases, that you can have a number, a text, and a date in the same column. Well, you can, but then they're all considered text. And if you try to put text in the numbers column, that will not work. So for the new people, in order to import that data that you downloaded, you click on File, you click on Import, and this is really important. Pay attention, please, that you don't choose database. Instead, you choose table from CSV file. That's what you're going to choose, table from CSV file. And I'm going to find them here. And we have UK elections 2015, and it's a comma separated values file. And for the new people here, one thing I talked about quite a lot yesterday was that you need to make sure that you tick this box. You need to make sure that you tick this box in column names. If your file doesn't look as neat as tidy as this one does, make sure that you check the field separator. This is a pure CSV file, an international CSV file, if you want to say that. For some countries, like the Nordic countries and also France, we learned yesterday, the separator that separates the columns are a semicolon instead for a comma. You can get files in the US where you have other separators, like a tab or a vertical bar, for instance. And also, I talked about the fact that if you belong, like I do, belong to a country with strange letters, you know, where letters that are not A to Z, but there's other, we have dots above our letters, for instance, and so on. Then the UTF-8 encoding is your friend. If you choose that encoding, you're usually fine. I can't say for sure because it's sometimes that tricks me up, but the UTF-8 is something to remember. Actually, also for Excel, if you're working around Excel. So once you've made sure that you tick that box, you click OK, and hopefully this table will be in your data. So now we're basically where we were yesterday. We have one table in our bucket that is called GIJC 2 is my bucket called, and there's just one table in there. And let's, just for practice sake, do that command where we calculated the election result once again. So in order to, if you remember, in order to communicate with the database, and this is one of the things I love about SQL, is that you actually, it suits us as journalists because you ask questions. So I'm going to ask, I'm asking the database questions. So in this case, I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to say, and we're going to take this command that I wrote here. So I'm going to, for each party, I want to, and the group by makes it possible to do that for each party. I'm going to count the candidates. And I have to tell them which table I'm using. I'm using the UK election 2015. And for those of you who were there yesterday, you know that we had all the candidates in the data, not just the winners. So we have to tell it that it is the winners. So we're doing the condition of rank 1. And this is the for each party group by. Then we need to do the group by party in order to do that. And then we want to order by count candidate, and we want to have the party who had the most candidates on top. So we put DESC. So if I type this in here, and I'm sorry the screen is so small. I'm actually gonna use my glasses. So I'm gonna select party, comma, count, candidate, and parenthesis. And I'm gonna say from UK election. And you see that it turns up here. And as we talked about it yesterday, you can see that the colors here are, if the colors go red, for instance, that's an indication that you've written something wrong. We're gonna put our condition in. So that's our where. I'm sorry about that. George, are you sure that you use the import to CSV file? Have you created, my first question to you is, have you created a database? Have you done new database and created a database? You've done that, and it says, that's a little bit strange. Ever importing data, creating the table failed, unrecognized. Comes up with gibberish. Well, wait a minute. When it says gibberish, let me show you something. Let's see if we can. Let's see if I can show you this. So let's do import table. You did table from CSV. You said yes to that. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna select that once more. Yeah, I'm just checking. That's the hard part of teaching digitally. But I'm gonna show you. Is it so that the gibberish looks like this? Could it be that the field separated, that you need to change the field separated to comma? There's unrecognizable characters in the fields. Your encoding is UTF-8? It's a great question, Anastasia. But do you get to here? Do you get to here? But this field is all wrong. So can you come as far as this? Import as CSV. You get to there. And does it look like this when you get to there? Do you see the columns when you get to here? You see these columns here, like this, or not? That's the thing. I think that you might need to change the field separator. Yeah, but I would check this, that line that says field separator. Could you change that to a comma? So there is a comma there. Then I have no clue why it is. Maybe if you hang around afterwards, I'll see if I can help you, but I'm very sorry. I think you have to follow along looking at me. I'm very sorry. But I'll hang on afterwards and we can see if you can solve your problem. Okay, so we're going here. We're going to do select party. We're going to count the candidates from the election where rank equals 1. We're going to do this by party. So we're going to do group by party. And we want to sort this order by the count candidate. And parenthesis, and we want to do the largest party on top. So we want to do descending. So if we run this query by pressing the play button, you can see that we see here all the parties in the UK election of 2015. We see that the Conservatives got 331 candidates, Labour got 232, and so on and so on. As you can see here, and this is just a little trick that I want to teach you. As you can see here, the result here is 2 columns, right? It's a column with a party and a column with the number. And we can actually change our command by, instead of, because this is quite a long thing to write once again. So just a little trick is that I can actually change that to 2. And 2 there means the second column. So party is the first column and count candidate is the second column. So by changing that into a 2 and then running it again, it will give you the same result, but it's easier to write. So you only have to write that once. That's just a little trick for you to do the change. I would like you to write a query where we see how many men and women that became parliamentarians in this election. You know, I'm from Sweden. We're big on equality in Sweden. So I want to know how many female candidates, how many female winners were there and how many male winners. So I'm going to ask you to write that down for, I'm going to wait for a minute or so, and then whoever writes it in the chat first. So write a query where we calculate how many women won their elections. So we have an answer. Total over parties. We have a question. Good. I would say total because it becomes really, because there are so many parties that it becomes really tricky. So let's start with total. So totally, how many women, how many men came into the UK Parliament in 2015? That looks correct. Great job, Alina. Thank you. Let's try your query out. I'm going to copy it from the chat. Feel free to do that if you want to do that. Oh, there's several other. And Constantina says count F. Have you tried that and see if that works? I would say that if we don't have a column named count F, then that won't work. And you also need a group by when you do the count. So exactly, but great try. This is the thing with SQL, you can always try because you don't really destroy your data the way that you would if you sort something in Excel, for instance. You can sort it all wrong. I don't know if you've done that sometimes. This is the query by Alina, I think. Was it Alina? Anastasia, sorry, Anastasia. And let's try this out. So this is the one, select gender, count candidate from UK election, where rank is 1, group by gender, order by 2 descending. So we can go in here and we can do select, and I'm just going to change it, gender, count candidate from UK election, and then you have to change it in 2 places. You have to do gender there as well. And if we run it, we can see that there were 459 men and 191 women. And if I remember correctly, this was the most equal parliament they've had in a long time. So, oh, it was Elena, she was first. Sorry, great. That is great. You both did a good job. That I see that now. Sorry about that. Yeah. So you can see that we did it that way. This was one of the more. So let's do what Savia asked. Was it Savia who asked that? Yes. So if you want to do this by party, we can just, and I can do this. Let's see, I'm just going to close this out there. So if we want to add party here, we can do this by adding party here. So we want to do by party by gender. And as I said, whenever you put something in the select statement by itself and you have a group by, you need to put the thing that you put in the select statement also in the group by. I have to do one more change here, and that is because I did my little trick of exchanging the count candidate here to 2. So in order to find the party and the gender that had the largest amount of candidates, I need to do order by 3, right? Because all of a sudden we will get a table that has 3 columns as a result. So I'm going to fix this. I'm going to put in party here and gender, and I'm going to group it by party, comma, gender. And it doesn't matter if you remember if I have a space or not. The important thing is the comma. So the important thing is the comma. The space doesn't really matter. I just do it because it's easier to read. And a lot of these things that I do, like the capital letters separated from the not non-capital letters, is also because it gets easier to read. So when I do this and I run it, we see here that this is a little hard to, it's actually a little hard to interpret. Maybe we should have put the gender first. And then we can see here that we have, so you have to sort of think about how do you want to do it so that it's easily readable. Here we see you put gender third and ordered by 3. Let's try that. That's a great selection. That's a great suggestion. So let's try that. So we're gonna change this. Let's do it there. So instead of having gender here, I'm just gonna keep that. And I'm gonna take out gender. So I'm gonna do party, gender. And you can still have the group by there, because as long as they're in there, it doesn't matter that you have count in it. And you did, let's see, what did we say? And ordered by 3. And the last column is ordered by M and F. Yeah, that's correct. And we could actually order by I'm going to improve on your great query a little bit, Savia, here by doing, let's order by 3, 2. And what do I do there? I first do the gender, and then I will get the party that had the highest number of each gender first. So let's check this out. We're going to put gender in the back. Somebody is, oh, good. So party, count candidate, comma, gender. And we're going to order by 3, 2. And we're going to run this. And then we'll see here the females, labor, and this also gives us new information. It says that labor had more female candidates, even though Labour lost the election, they still had more female candidates than the Conservative Party. And also SNP had a high percentage of female candidates. So if I wanted to calculate percentages here, I would actually I would copy this to Excel and do the calculations there. That is usually easy. You can do it in SQL. So, but if you want to copy this, the easiest way to do that is just to click, just as you do in Excel, click between the column row and the column and the rows like this. You select everything, you do Control C or Command C, and you paste it into Excel, and you can work on it there. And that's actually very often how I work in SQL, is that I select out a part of the data, either a part of the data that goes vertically or horizontally, and then I put it into Excel and I do my calculations in Excel. And then I go back and I do another selection and I take that out to Excel. So I usually go back and forth between that. And a good tip is, we talked yesterday about the fact that we want to keep our SQL commands. I keep them in a notebook or in a Word document or in a notes field. There are a SQL log that will appear here if you click SQL log down here, but I think it disappears once you, at least I find it more comfortable. This is maybe me being conservative. You can do whatever you want. I find it more easy to do this in another file. And the exception of that is actually when I take something out and continue working with it in Excel, I usually on a second sheet in Excel will paste in the actual SQL query, so that I know which SQL query did I use to generate this part of the data. So that is one way of doing it. I want to show you one more thing, and then we're gonna move over to doing joins. And that is, if we look at this table, we can see that the three parties that are really, maybe Liberal Democrats as well, but the three parties that are mostly interesting, because the other ones are so small, are Labour, Conservative, and SNP. So what if we want to select just those three? Then there's a great command to do, because we could do where party equals lab, or where party equals con, or where party equals SNP. We could, of course, do that statement, but there's a great statement that we can use instead. So we could say where rank is 1, and we're going to put and there. And then I'm just going to say where party in. And then I'm going to do a little group of, so I'm going to say where party in lab, comma, con, comma, SNP. So within quotation marks, I write the names of the parties. So I could say and party. And if I want to make this more, I think this works, but if I want to make it super clear, I can put parentheses around these two so that SQL really knows that it's going to take rank equals 1, and then it's going to take party in lab, con, or SNP within parentheses. So if we try this out, oh, that's true. Frauke has a good point where she says that if you use SQL for big tables, then pasting into Excel might not work because the tables are too big. That's quite all right. That's actually a good point. You have to sort of be careful how many rows you really select out. So that's a good comment. Thank you for that. So let's continue with this. We're just going to change this one I'm going to put a parenthesis around rank equals 1. Then I'm going to write and with uppercase. And then I'm going to say a new parenthesis and then party. And I'm going to use the word in and a new parenthesis where I write, oh, and I have to be careful, LAB, comma, CON, comma, SNP, end parenthesis. And then I have to end my first parenthesis, that I have 2 parentheses at the end of it. So each name of the party needs to be in quotation marks. You have to have a comma in between, and you have to have them within parentheses. And if I run this, I then get this nice concentrated table. That's not all of them, and we know that. But if I want to play around with these ones and just calculate the percentages of these ones, that works fine. Doing a pivot table in like you do in Excel, where we actually put the gender on top like that, is actually quite hard in SQL, and I'm not going to go through it in this session. You would be better off using Excel for that. Yeah, that is right. You have to, but then you have to say and count candidate is larger than 1, for instance. So you have to put that as a selection. Savia asks if you wanna select those parties where the number of F and M was higher than 1, then you can just add larger than 1. Since we have the gender here, it gets a little tricky. That's actually quite a tricky question, but you can try it out and see if you can get it to work. But you can't have, if you're separating the genders in the query, in the select statement, which we are because we're including gender, then you can't do the calculation where you say the number of F and M will be higher than 1. That is actually not possible. I hope that made sense. But now we're getting into very tricky things. We're gonna go on to do the next part of this. So we've done a couple of group bys here. I hope that people feel comfortable with that. Oh, great. Thank you, George, for that question. I would change count to 2, 3 in the order by, because I now have, as you can see here, I have 3 columns in my table, and I want to order them first by gender. So we have all the Fs and all the Ms, and secondly, by the second column, which is count candidate, and that I want to do descending. So I want to do that by the largest to the smallest. So I am ordering it by the 3rd column and the 2nd column. That's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so we've done a number of group bys, right? So let's step on over to doing joins, because actually that is what I've promised to do this session. So we will do that. So there is, I want to talk a little bit about joins to start with, and I'm gonna go and look up a little bit of a illustration for you, and we're going to see. There we are. So this is actually the tip sheet that will be published on Pathable as well, and that tip sheet goes through everything that we've done and then some, so that you can see what we've been doing. But what I wanted to show you here is this illustration. So, and if you went to school in the 70s, like I did, you might feel a little horrified by these illustrations, because that's what we did in math class in the 70s. I think they've left it out now. But when we join 2 tables, what we actually do is that we take one of the tables, and then we put the other one. We take one table here, and we put the other table next to it. So you get one really, really wide table. And we will then tell the database to, in order to know which rows that correspond with which rows, we need to have a unique, it doesn't have to be unique, but it has to be one of the columns in each table needs to have something that is the same. So a name or a party or a code of some kind. So you can join. So if we join this, for instance, the thing that we're going to do here is we're going to take the table of the people who participated in the UK 2015 election. We have the names of them there. And then we're going to join them to a table that describes the donations given to politicians that participated in the 2015 election. So we have names of them, and when we join them by names, we will get them, we'll get the rows for the same names at the same time. And that is what is called an inner join. That means that if we have all the people that participated in the election here, we have all the people that got money here, the inner join or the plain join that we're going to do first will only give you a table that consists of people that both participated in the election and got money. So joining is also a great way of, oh, that's great. Thank you. You will have a link to the tip sheet in the chat if you want to look at it. So that means that using join will, for instance, answer the questions. Here I have all my political candidates in the Swedish election. Here I have a bunch of people committing tax fraud, say that. If I join those tables, there are very few rows that will be the same, but the 3 rows that are the same are, of course, my story. Because of all the candidates in the political election, I have now found 3 that have committed tax fraud, if I have that kind of data. That data is even hard to get from us, and we have the best open records law in the world. But anyway, so that's what an inner join is. It usually limits your result very much. That's something to think about. When you do an inner join, you will get less rows. So as you can see here, you can also do a left and a right join. I would not do a full join because it's absolutely meaningless. So don't do those. I don't know why it was in the illustration. But a left join allows you to do all the records, all the rows, everybody who participated in the elections. We will get our 3,500 row long table. And then on those rows where we have a politician, where we have a candidate that also got money, we will have additional information for them, but not on the other rows. So you will get sort of you will always know that if you do a left join, the table that you put to the left, that will be the length of your table. This will be much more clear. I just wanted to show you these illustrations. It will be much clearer. If it's confusing now, it will be much clearer in a second. So let's go to Pathable and download our second file, which is called UK 15 donations. Go to Pathable, click on the little cloud and download your file. So that is the donations file. So we'll download that and then go back to your program. And we need to go back, or I at least like to do that. I don't think we actually need to do that, but I usually do that. Need to go back to database structure, where you see, in my case, I have 1 table. Some of you will have 2 here because we did that little people table in the beginning of the session yesterday. So we're now going to add another table into our bucket, into our database, into our vessel that we're using. And we're doing the same way as we did the previous one. And it's, as I said, it's really, really important to not import a SQL file here. You don't have to delete the people's table. It can just be there. It's let's see, it's a pedagogical way of showing you that you can have a lot of tables in your database without them even being related if you wanted to. So you don't have to do that. You can do it if you want to. We're not going to use it anymore, but you don't have to delete the people's table if you don't want to. So let's go up to File and choose Import. And make sure that you do this right now. This is really, really important because you'll destroy your database if you do it the wrong way. So please don't. Use the table from the CSV file command. And go and find wherever you put your UK 15 donations table. And we're going to just click Open here. And hopefully, I don't know if you're trying this, George, if you get the same error here, like you did in the other one. Hopefully you will get columns here. And remember to click, if it's not clicked, if it says field up here, then it's an indication that you haven't. So please click on that little square. And make sure, as long as you know, as long as you see the columns, you're basically fine. If you have clicked that little bar. Okay. As long as you're solving it, that's a great way of solving it. Good job. As long as you see your columns, then you're basically fine if you click that little box. So just click OK. And we have our file. And just as we did, I would, Savia, if you forgot to click the names in the first row, I would delete the table and upload it again. That would be the easiest way to do it, actually. It will be much harder to do it. Yeah. And you delete the table by selecting it here, and then you have a delete table command up here if you want to do that. So now we have these two tables. Just for the fun of it, and just as a reminder, we can check the data structure of the table. So if we click on the UK donations and click on modify table and just click save, you will see the table. Yeah, you just cancel that out. Yeah, just cancel that out. Yeah. So just cancel the edit table definition out. So when we look at the UK donations, what I did was I clicked on UK 15 donations and I clicked on modify table. And if it says save, you just click save there. We can see that this is a text. This is a table that has a lot of text fields, lots of text columns. We have one, and it's really important that that one says real. Otherwise, we can't calculate with the money. Nope, I made it wrong. Sorry, I should be hovering over there. All the other ones is text, except for ones in the end of it. We don't need to do that. But as you remember, if you have text, you can't count on, if you put numbers in a text column, you can't count on them or sum them or anything like that. So we just wanted to check that. Just click OK. And we can also, which I think we looked at very briefly yesterday, but I can show you this, is that there is also a tab next to database structure that is called Browse Data. And if we click on that, we actually have the UK election 15 here, but I can change that up here under table. So I clicked on Browse next to database structure. I clicked on Browse Data, and up here, just under here, it says UK election 2015 in my, I can change that to donations, and we can see it in sort of an Excel way. We can see this data here, that it has a two name columns actually, and this is because I have cleaned up the data. Remember how I told you that if you want to join tables, you need to join them on what's something that is the same in both tables. And the election authority that's given me this data in the UK, they like titles. So almost every person has a title, a Ms. or a Right Honorable or an MP at the behind. So I've just cleaned that up. So I have a field here called clean name, where I've cleaned the data up so that it can correspond with the other things. The other thing that we should note also is that here we have, this is Andy Burnham, and he has gotten several donations from several different people. So we can see that he has gotten a lot of donations, but in the candidates file, there's only one Andy Burnham. So what happens then when we join the tables? Well, what happens when we join the tables is that you will get the file with the election result will duplicate. So you will have Andy Burnham, Andy Burnham, Andy Burnham, Andy Burnham, the same row for a number of times. And then you would get the different rows here. We will see that very soon, and you can see what I mean about that. That means that you have to be a little bit careful when you calculate things, and you have to make sure that you don't have, for instance, two Andy Burnham, because then your numbers will be duplicated. Usually what happens when you get these kinds of errors is that the numbers get super large because they get multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. So it will sort of just be a matter of using your journalistic nose and realizing that Andy Burnham couldn't have gotten 52 billion pounds in donations. And that will then sort of, and you will find the error. But be a little bit careful when you're joining tables where you know that it's a not to one, so that one row corresponds to one row. So that if you know that there's one row corresponds to many rows, that works fine. But if you have many to many, then that's when you need to be careful. But it will usually show itself as a unusually large number. So we have those stages. We're gonna do our first join statement. We should do that, Frauke, but we are a little bit short on time. But you are correct. We should check the election table for duplicate names first before joining with values. Well, maybe we could do that really, really quickly. You're right about that, but you are correct. So what we could do then is basically to do a quick command here that says select candidate, comma, count, and then we need to count something. And we could actually do count candidate here again, because we want to count how many times a candidate appears. And then we'll do from UK election 2015. And we need to, when we're counting, we need a group by. So we need to group by candidate. And to find this quicker, I would do a order by 2 descending. So the second column. So if I take this command very quickly, I copy it, I put it into here, and we run it, and we see that we actually have that exact problem that that Frauke is talking about. Quite a lot of those problems. We're going to ignore them. That was a great question. I've done this class a number of times. That's the first time somebody has caught that. So great job on you. I did know that there were duplicates there, but when we do this a little bit longer, we usually find them out at the end. So let's do the join. That's the really interesting part of this. So we're gonna now, let's see, where's my Word document? There's my Word document. So, as always, we start with select. Let's do a simple join here. Let's do candidate. And remember how I said when you join two tables, they come together as one giant wide table. So that means that we have the columns of both tables to choose from. So we can then do clean name. So we're doing candidate and clean name from UK election. And now comes the new part, 2015. And we'll do a join UK 15 nations. And then we'll need to tell them how to join these two. So we need to tell them not just to join them, but on what. So we're going to say on. And we need to tell them that we need to tell them which table to use. And the easiest part to do this is, I'm going to write this out, election 2015, period, candidate should be equal to UK 15 underscore donations, period, clean name. So what I'm saying here is that we're going to select from both tables, one column from each table. I'm going to join them, and we're going to do that where the candidate name and the clean name are the same. And that, of course, is really tricky to write because it's there's a lot of letters there, and the table names are really long. So what I can do instead is I can do select candidate, comma, clean name from UK election 2015. And I can call that A by doing a little A after it. That's like an alias. And I'm going to do join UK 15 donations. And I'm going to call that B. And then I can just do on A dot and it date equals B dot clean name. Can you see that these two are the same? So that that command and that command becomes the same because we've used an alias for the tables here, A and B. So I'm going to copy this command, and we're going to run this and see if it works. And just typing the letter exactly. For making an alias, there's no command. Not when you're using an alias as a database. You can actually also use an alias in the select part of the statement. And then you actually have to use the word as. So you could say count candidates as number of candidates, for instance, or something like that. But when you're using it for tables, you just put A and B. And hopefully, and we'll run this. And here you can see exactly what I talked about, which is that we're getting all the candidates, but we're getting them number of times because they have gotten number of donations here. So each row here is a number of donations. So if I want to, for instance, show you that, I could add something. I'm just going to go in and see what the name will be. So there's something called a donor name, which is the person who has given the donation to the people. So if I change my data like that, so I say select candidate, clean name. I'm going to say donor name. And then I'm going to say value, because that is the amount that the person has gotten. I can then go back and add this in. So I'm going to do comma, donor name, comma, value, which is the value of the money. And I spelled that wrong, donor name. And if I run this again, you can see here that Guru Bab has gotten 3 donations. And Nick Herbert has gotten 4 donations, and for each those money, that money, actually Derek Sayer has hopefully given that 2 times, and so on and so on and so on. So you can see here how one row in the candidate table is multiple rows in the donations table, and we join them together. So if we want to know, for instance, who got, let's see, who got the most money here? Who got the most money? And what, say that we are asking the question, who got the most money and what constituency did he stand in, or what party did he represent? That's maybe an easier way. That's also easier to spell than constituency, which is really hard to spell, trust me. So let's say that we want to see, so for each candidate, how much money did they get and what party did they represent? So I'm going back to my Word file to do that. So as always, we start with select, and you can see that this is, oh good. And you can see that we always do it like this, select, from, and so on. So let's say from the candidates database, we're taking exactly. That's a great suggestion, Frauke. Let's sort by value to see the big fishes. So select from the candidate table. We're going to select candidate and party. And from the donations table, we're going to select clean name. And we want all of the money. So we're going to do like a function here, like a formula. We're going to sum. And you will find that most formulas, not all of them, because in Excel there's 1,000 of them, but the most common formulas that you use in Excel, like sum or average or count and things like that, you will find in SQL as well. Just Google them and you will find them. So we will then do this whole thing, UK election, let's spell it right, election 2015, and we'll call that A. And also by using the alias, if you had, for instance, had columns who had the same name in both tables, then you could use the aliases up here to say that this is A dot candidate and this is B dot clean name. So when you want to point out that a column should come first from a certain table, you can use the aliases there as well. So we're going to do join UK 15 underscore donations as B, and we're going to do them on A dot candidate equals B dot clean name. And we need to do one more thing, because we're summing something, we need to group them, right? So we have to group by, and as you know, we need to group by everything that stands for itself up here in the select statement. We need to have in the group by statement. So I can just copy this in here. I'm going to take out the A dot because since they are different, named differently, we don't really need them. So what we're doing here, we're selecting the candidate and the party from the elections table. We're selecting the clean name and the value of all the donations from the donations table. So we've joined, and then we join them on the fact that the names are similar, and we're ignoring the fact that there are some candidates who have the same name. And in order to calculate the value, we need to group on the candidates, because otherwise, if we don't group them, it will be like this. We will still get one row for each person. So the grouping thing helps us sum things up. So I am gonna change this a little bit. So I'm gonna say I need candidate, I need party, comma, clean name, and then I need to sum the value. Don't forget the parenthesis around the value. I do have my join statement here. So from election 2015, join election, and we call that A. We're gonna join UK donations B, and we're gonna do that on the name. You could, that's also a great question. If I realize that the join table is really the one that I want to work with, yes, you can do that. You can actually remember in the beginning when we created a table, what you can do is you can do create table as a, and then write your select statement. We're not going to do that here, but you can join that. You can Google that. So if you Google creating a table from a select statement, then you can find how to do that. So yes, it's possible, and it's actually how you usually work. If you know that it's actually the join table that you want to work with, then you do it like that, and you will then start working with the table that you've created. That's a great question. Thank you. So we needed to group by this, and also I forgot we needed to order it in order to find the big fishes. So we're grouping by, and in order, I usually do this. I usually click cut and paste here, because then I know that I've taken everything that it stands by itself in the select statement needs to stand by itself. And we need to order by, and we can just count 1, 2, 3, 4. That will be the fourth column. So I say order by 4 descending. Let's see if this works. Ah, look at it. It does work, and it makes perfect sense, and it's correct also, which I was very happy to see. So the biggest fish there is Edward Timpson, who's a conservative, and he got 2010 210,000 pounds. And the next one in order is David Lammy, who got 206,000 pounds. So by doing this, and you can also see something else which is really important. You see here that it says 80 rows, but we know that we had 3,500 people in our candidates database. So that means that out of those 3,500 people, there was only about 80 who actually got any money at all. And we have 5 minutes left. I have 2 things that I want to show you. So one of them is that you can add on calculations if you want to. So say that we also want to see how many donations they got. So let's see, we have a question. You're going ahead. This is what I'm going to work on. That's great. That is a great thing from Frake. That is sort of ruining my last point, but never mind. That's really good. You're doing great. What I wanted to show you was that you can add on several calculations here. So I can do a count, and I can do count donor name here to see how many donations did each candidate get. And because that could be interesting. So I'm just going to add on the count donor name here. And what you'll see is what Frake we already had seen, is that actually Edward Timpson only got 2 donations, even though he got the most money, he only got 2 donations. And it also turns out when you go back into the data that it's from his own company. I think there was some kind of investigation into that, if I remember correctly. And David Lammy has gotten 37 donations. So he is much more, if you want to say that, you could say that he's much more of a grassroots politician than what Edward Timpson has done, because he finds, I mean, it's a little too few donations to do that, but still. The other thing that I wanted you to do, could you modify, and this is the last thing, you have only 3 minutes left. Could you modify this so that we can find out if there were any people who didn't win their election who got money? So just if you want to modify this query so that we can see if there were any non-winners who did get money. So that is the question. Is there any candidates who came in second or third or fourth who didn't get any money? Oh, we have answers. Well, we're not. We should add rank. Savia and Rune are on the right path, but Rune isn't really. You're almost there. You're almost there. Anybody else has a suggestion? Anastasia solves it very cleverly. That's one way of doing it. So we could do it like Anastasia said, which is, and remember how I said that these words always come in the same order. So if we want to add a where here, we always have select, from, where, group by, order by. That's the path that we're going through. So we need to put in the where here. And we could do as Anastasia suggested, which is where winner 2015 equals N, but you have to have it into quotation mark. Or we can do it as Forke, where rank is larger than 1. So both of those works fine. So if we say where rank, oops, I'm writing somewhere, but not there. Where rank is larger than 1, and that's a way to do it. And why don't we add in the rank here so that we can see where they actually ended up. Sorry, there we go. Let's put it last. Let's do rank there. And remember, if we have something in itself in the select statement, we need to put rank there as well. So we've changed our query. So we, just before group by, we put in a where rank larger than 1. And then I actually put in comma rank. And that means that I also need to put rank in the group by. And if I run this, we have a number of people who came in second who got money. Most money was Jim Mercy. There were 5 donors who gave him almost £60,000, but he came in second. And we also have maybe the most famous name, Nigel Farage of UKIP, who got 7,500 donations from one donor, but he came in second as well. Yeah, and that is all number 2. And that's because there are very few donations in the UK election. As we saw, there were only 80 people out of 3,500 that got any money at all. We're actually running out of time. As I said, the tip sheet is in the chat up here somewhere, or it will be on the pathway on the platform as well. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. It's just my name at gmail.com, helena.bengtsson@gmail.com. I don't know, I think we have a little time, George, if you want to, I don't know, they have to, the technician has to tell me whether or not I can hang on and help out one of the participants afterwards, or if we have to close out. But for the rest of you, I'm saying thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please email me and I'll be happy to answer them.